I am Sorcha Millican-Nagle. It's spelt nothing like it's pronounced. I don't expect you to remember. If you want to make up a nickname, that's fine. I'm from Playside Studios. I'm the Employer Brand and Industry Relations Manager. Fun fact, it's 4 words, just like my name. That's 3 words. There's another middle name that none of you know. So 4 words goes with the name. I do the industry outreach, so all the conferences, events, and my background is in project management or production. I've been in games for 10 years, so I represent Playside from the perspective of having been a dev, but also coming here to talk to you about career pathways. So I will throw it to the others for a little intro shortly, but to tell you a bit about Playside, because we're from Melbourne, we have more than 340 staff. It's too many people. We don't know where we put them all. And we have a publishing division, mobile, PC console, lots of people doing cool things in games. So if you know Dumb Ways to Die, don't make me sing it. That's what we make. And I'll throw it to everyone else for a short intro.
I'm Stewart von Itzstein. I'm a professorial lead at UniSA. Don't worry about that title. It's essentially
Doctor.
a manager. And I teach game design at the University of South Australia, which will soon become the Adelaide University. And my previous career, I guess, is I used to work in command decision environments with the military. I used to do essentially simulation. If you think of real-time strategy, but with real environments, that's kind of what it is. So that's kind of my background.
Hey, I'm Jacqueline Burgess. I'm a senior lecturer at UniSC in Queensland, where I teach marketing, branding, international business. I also research marketing in the Australian games industry and run marketing workshops for industry. And my first console was a Nintendo 65. Banjo-Tooie and Mario Party 2. Am I right? I'm right.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lauren Woolbright, and I am a lecturer at Flinders University. I also run the Games Research Lab there. I came to Australia from the US about 1.5 years ago. So I've been teaching for 14 years in game design at this point, mostly in the US, but here for the last little bit. My interests include environmental storytelling. So like when you go into a space, how does that space tell you about what the world is and what you're expecting next? And I'm interested in narrative design as well.
My name's Shane Bevan. I'm a lecturer at Flinders, once again across game production and also the VED degree, so visual effects and entertainment design. I have a commercial background, so I was a production artist and technical director for years. And it's not a competition, but my first computer was a ZX81. It had 1K of RAM.
That's terrifying. That's like less than a text file.
Yes, correct.
Sorry, my brain's still processing that. Great. Cool. Mine was also an N64. That's fine. All right. So very keen to get into this. We will do questions afterwards because we got a lovely big audience and a lot of lovely people to talk about lots of meaty topics. So we're going to talk about pathways in games and a little bit of the skills, what you need to get into games, but partly putting a focus on education too, particularly because these days, especially over the last 8 years, even since I've been in games, there's been a lot more games degrees and certificates and diplomas, and even going back into high school now, you can study it. So it's a really cool opportunity to think about what you want to do. So to kick off, I actually want to do a quick little audience interaction. So give me a sec. Okay. If 10 is you are working in games, you know so much about games, and 1 is what on earth do you play games all day for a job? So 10 is like you know a lot. How many people are above a 5 in knowing what games careers are like? Okay, great. So we've got a new audience, and below 5. So everyone else. And some people aren't putting up your hands. That's fine. I understand. We're a bit scary. It's fair. So to get into it then, we're going to do a little overview of a bit of the roles in games and what pathways are available. There are so many. If you take a character as an example, I'm sure you all know, but one character is at least 8 different people to put it in, 8 different jobs. 3D character, not 2D. So there's a lot involved. Yeah, I'll throw it to the wonderful panel here to maybe give a little bit of a day in the life or an overview of what kind of options are available. Maybe we start with the technical engineering front.
Me?
Or either or, yeah.
Do you want to start?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. So I guess I come from a tech art background. I spent a lot of time making characters and environments and things like that. And I spent a lot of time in small teams. So while Sorcha's talking about a giant team, in our small team, we had to be multifaceted in what we could do. So the day in the life for me would be very different from the day in the life for a technical artist in another in a bigger place. In terms of technical art, though, it's making characters move, but getting them rigged, ready for an animator to take over and actually bring them to life. It's making sure that everything is the right poly count so that it works and doesn't suddenly lag to 5 frames per second. It's a really rewarding area, but in some ways you really have to love computers. You have to love the art as well. And not everyone loves both things as much.
But it's a discipline that it's actually probably has the least people working in it within the industry, right? So if you want a job, it's a good way to go.
I think that's a really good point. Anyone who's really embedded themselves in that technical understanding and the art, super valuable. Even if it's not your everyday job, you'll quite often find, and this was most of my life in the commercial world, as the conduit and the translator between the art team and the tech team. So if that's you, there's a job out there for sure.
So you're the person at school that likes to talk to everybody. No, I'm kidding. That's a producer. If you like to kind of help make things make sense, if you're creative but also technical, it's a really good path. Logic and maths, but also art. Why not?
I'll jump in because there's technical stuff. I find that I have groups of students that come through and they very much fall naturally into some of these areas. So, I'll get the super technical ones, which become sort of engine people that will build, the scripting and stuff through into the engines and actually create that sort of triggered environment that you need for the artists to actually build their assets and stuff like that, and the level and the narrative designers as well. And they quite naturally fit into the super technical IT, software engineering sort of line. And then I have another group of people who come through that are the creatives. They love the building a character and getting that the personality to be transmitted from the artist to the person who's playing it and identify with the character and it's actually quite fascinating to see how they interact. And one of the things we know about, Australia is that a lot of our stuff is indies. And if you can bridge those gaps and actually do a bit of everything, you can actually be an indie developer. And a lot of times when you go to a AAA, you can be a specialist in one area. But if you want to sort of start your own little mini game studio, an indie game studio, you need to be sort of multifaceted and be able to bring the super technical through, and then also the inner artist as well, and that's actually quite tricky to do, and it's quite tricky to translate that. So.
I've got actually a bit of an example. The team I'm working with right now at Flinders, we have a motion capture studio called The Void at Flinders. And so we've created an interactive theater show, which is going to be in the Fringe. And it's, unfortunately, if you haven't got your tickets already, it's sold out. But yeah, sounds great. There's only 12 participants per show because it's supposed to be very intimate and you want people to be able to interact. But what we have is 3 AI characters and 2 in-person improv actors. And then the participants are also sort of in that ecosystem. So you can speak to any of the AI characters about anything you'd like. It doesn't have to be at all related to the scenario of the show. And so testing for that gets highly technical. And I've got my team of AI specialists from computer science in the void space working together with my animators and my artist, my character designer who's made the skins, and we've rigged them up. And so now we're trying to figure out, all right, when you speak into the microphone and your words go to the AI, they go from speech to text, and then they generate a response in text, it goes to speech, and then it has to animate the face of the character to respond. So we're trying to smooth out the latency, like the time it takes for that to happen, so it doesn't feel like, I asked a question and now I'm waiting, like 5, 10 seconds. God, 3 seconds feels like ages. You want it to be like milliseconds. And so we're trying to figure out the pipeline of that. So even though my background is 2 degrees in literature and 1 in writing, we're still coordinating all of these different pieces and trying to get it all to work from a technical standpoint so that we can tell the story we want to tell.
So, sorry, you go, Jacqueline.
I was just going to say, speaking of multifaceted roles in the games industry, I think we've all forgotten the most important one, the marketing, right? Because I'm totally unbiased and objective when I say that. But seriously, with small studios, you're not going to have a marketer. Like, you're not going to be able to afford to have a marketer. If you've done a video game degree, you're not going to have kind of the specialised marketing kind of skill set. So you're probably going to be teaming that, sharing that maybe even across 3 or 4 people, because it's actually really important when you're trying to community manage, you're trying to create social media content, get eyeballs for your Kickstarter. You're going to be scheduling posts, checking your analytics, checking your Steam wish lists. Did you get a spike after a certain activity or certain post or something? What happened? Can we try that again? And so on. That's going to then really get you actual players, and that's the whole point of video games, right? Is to have them actually be played.
Yeah. You're why our shows are sold out. Like, no one would have heard of our game if it wasn't for our excellent marketing team. So thank you for your
You're welcome. Not that I did anything to do with that project whatsoever.
The people like you.
I actually want to support that point. We all go to these pitches for games, and I don't know how many I've been to, and I've sat there and I went, this is not going to sell. You sit there and you listen to it, and there's this person that's obviously very passionate about what they're doing, but they've missed the market. And you sit there and you think, I don't know, they're going to sell 3 copies. Yeah, and so being a game developer isn't sitting in the corner in a dark room hacking on code or artist painting stuff. It's actually being able to say, who's the person I'm targeting this at, and how many of them are there? And that sometimes gets missed when we get excited about what we're doing. And I think one of the things that's nice about a career pathway, if you pick the right one, there is teaching involved around understanding all these things that you probably will hate when you're learning. Sorry, but are absolutely vital. And when you actually see what it is, you actually go, "Oh my God, this is so helpful." And I know I teach project management as well, and the students come in and go, "Oh, I hate this. I just want to code up games." And it's like, no, you can't scale without good project management. And so, I'm sitting around all the people here, and they're all like reflections of conversations I've had with budding game developers over the years. So it's
Just to finish that briefly, I will say too, that's one great way to get your grants to stand out. South Australia doesn't have a game grant, but Screen Australia and the other states, the marketing sections of grants are often the weakest. So you do that section well, and that's a great way to get yourself to stand out from the crowd.
And I think it's a really good point from everyone, because we've kind of highlighted the tech side, the engineering, the marketing focus. So there are roles where you're not just programming or making art. That's a huge part of it, don't get me wrong. But if you really like games but you don't think you can develop them, there's marketing, there's production. So I can't code to save my life. That's why I was a producer. And art either. I studied graphic design, can't make art, so I tried production and I loved it. And there's marketing, there's people that do testing for roles, there's people that do localization or translate things, there's people that go to conferences, there's a lot of different roles out there. So I think keep that in mind when you're thinking about your career path. And a lot of it, to really paint that day in the life, isn't just having a piece of thing that you make and programming and playing games in the corner. Unless you're testing, even then it's very hard work. It's not, you're repeating the same thing, trying to find issues and look for quality, but you're actually often working with a lot of different people and thinking about the audience that you're trying to build for. So on that note, what is education helping teach you, I guess, about the games industry and careers, and what could you get out of that to study that might help you in a role?
Okay, everybody looked at me. I made eye contact. That was a mistake. So I think one of the things about studying, like, look, let's all be honest. You can jump on YouTube and learn a whole lot of stuff nowadays. You can find so many resources out there, but I think there's some really key things that you get when you actually study. First of all, a focus. And not just a focus of what you want to do, but also information from your lecturers and peers about what things are important. There have been many students that I've had over the years who have said, hey, Shane, I want to do this. And 2 months later, they go, I've changed my mind completely because I didn't even know this other thing existed at all. And now they love that other thing more. The collaboration, the working in groups, all of that sort of stuff. Not all of us love working in groups, but you just heard us talk about every single thing that we discussed there was as part of a group effort. Okay, over to you guys.
You go.
I just thinking about, I'm terrible at art, so I'm really,
Same, don't worry.
Everyone has things that they're not good at. And quite often I think education is about not what you like doing, but it's the other stuff you need to know. And so if I said, I'm great, I love asset creation, I've already got a tool and I'm already doing it, and I'm probably if I'm passionate about it, I already know how to do it. The education is the business, the marketing, the project management that all wraps around it to give you a complete set of skills. And they're the ones you can sell yourself with. So you get noticed with what you're passionate about, and then you get pushed through by them knowing that you can do all the other things. And quite often I've seen graduates that go, and I'm thinking of one particular student I had a few years ago who literally stood on a chair and went, I just want to program games, and wouldn't do anything else other than that. And what happened is that they were just so narrow, they couldn't work in a team because they didn't have any way of even communicating with the rest of the team. So education is about that ability to work in a team and be able to talk and manage yourself, project manage yourself, but also work in a bigger managed project as well. So, for me, education is around knowing the stuff that you may not have taken an interest in learning yourself.
So it can teach you about the other jobs, and there's things out there.
Yeah, I definitely support that. To go back to marketing, because, when you're a marketer, you've got one hammer and everything is a marketing nail. But through a study, so it's a formal kind of structure and it's a recognised structure. So when you're going for interviews or even internships, if you've studied at, Flinders University or Uni SA, people know what skills you're going to have, who are employing you, what subjects, what you've learnt, what the university specialises in. So they're going to be much more confident to a point as to what you can do versus if you were, self-taught or, did some unknown online course or something like that. So it's going to help kind of get a foot in the door as a graduate. But all of your amazing institutions here in Adelaide, everyone in them has industry connections, right? They know industry. So there's going to be networking events. I'm sure, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, but I'm sure you've all been asked to recommend students. Mm-hmm. For certain, yeah. So you're going to get that extra kind of foot in the door with a sort of identifiable brand. So that's another good point too.
And on that note, we as a studio, if we have a close education partner, often we'll go, hey, what's happening with the students? Who's looking for jobs? Who do you recommend? And they come to us and go, we like these people. What do you think? They're doing really well. Showcase their folio. So it is really helpful to have that as a network option too.
The other bit is because of those relationships, we're actually hearing directly from industry studios what it is that they're looking for and what kinds of soft skills and technical skills they would like their new employees to have. And so we can incorporate that into our assessments. Our assessments are not arbitrary and they're not purely academic. It's not just for nothing, right? Those are all very intentionally designed, just like the games we teach, and they're meant to help you build those skills. And so all of that intentionality, and what I was going to add to the conversation was a bit from our panel yesterday, which is about the feedback that you get from your instructors, from your collaborators, and just in hearing other people receive feedback and how they respond. You have to cultivate resilience to having your work critiqued and be able to hear what people are saying and then take that on board so that you can iterate on your project. No game ever popped out into the world exactly as it is when you play it. It started out as some, tiny molecule of what it is now, and it had to go through many stages of development. It has to be iterated on, and that happens in teams. So,
can I just really quickly add as well that some of us have made a lot of mistakes over our years of jobs and learning, and my beard is grey partly because of those mistakes, right? So one of the things that you get in study is someone who literally can say, that sounds like a great idea. However, here's the 5 things that are going to go wrong along the way. You might do it better than me. Go for your life, but I'm just giving you a heads up. And so experts, we have our jobs because we're experts, and that's actually really useful to you as students.
Well, the other bit is that when we're grading you, we are not assessing the amazingness of your work. We're assessing the effort that you put in to bring it to that point. And so if you had X number of failures along the way, you can still get an HD from us because you put in all that labor and you learn so much from that process. So you might not have the best game in the class, but you might have the best grade in the class because we recognize that you put so much into it and got so much out of it. So for us, it's not necessarily about the perfect marketable finished product at the end of a project, but we want you to know how you would take it from the end of that topic and into a more robust creator space, maybe in collaboration, and make it into something that would work.
In addition to that, one of the things that I think sometimes our students forget is all these assessments that you're doing through your whole degree, your diploma, if you're at AIE or UniSA or Flinders or Adelaide University, there's an opportunity there to build a portfolio of work, because when you finish and if you're applying for a job at somewhere or you're trying to get funding, what will happen is they'll go, well, what have you done? And if you brought those in and you've gone to the nth degree, like I have students who I give them an assessment to do, and they come back and and it's just, oh my God, they've just gone to town on this. And it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so hard to mark. But then on the other hand, I'm thinking, oh wow, this is an amazing student. A couple of things happens here. One is they get something to add to their portfolio to say, this is something I did. And also that person sticks in my mind for a good reason, that when someone else comes along and says, oh, we're looking for someone. And I can think of one particular student that did this all the way through their degree. And then I had a studio in Adelaide come and say, look, do you have anyone we can use? I said, send this guy, talk to this guy, because you'll ask him to do X, he'll do X times 2. And he went off and he started working for that studio from that, right? And so some of these assessments look, oh man, this is mind-numbing. But if you sort of make it a positive experience, you enjoy it, and you try things out and you build that skill set. I heard earlier, I can't remember the lady's name, but she was talking about her animation. And she said, I'm an animator, and that's a whole bunch of little skills. And that's how it's stuck in my mind. It's like, it's not, I'm an animator. I do this, I can do that, I can do that. And that's where you learn those things through your educational pathway.
Well, and we also structure you making lots of little projects so that you can really get into, I want to try this one mechanic, or I want to try this one art style. And the best advice you can get when you are building a portfolio, especially for games, is to do something, don't spend too long on it, and then abandon it, right? Because your first game is going to suck. And it's not going to suck because it's bad. It's going to be not as good because you're going to continue to build those skills as you continue into more games. So you leave behind your early games quickly because what you've learned from them you can apply better to the next game. And so our assessments and the way that we structure our topics, our courses, is to make a lot of small things before we ask you to make a big thing. So you're having learned all these little things from all these really targeted projects we've had you do, now what can you do?
And I think it's a really good point that you bring up there, because it's a challenge that we face as developers. Interestingly, a lot of the problems I noticed as a producer, like communication issues on a team, not over-perfecting something when you have a deadline, not getting things done, or conflict, all of that kind of stuff is something that teachers try to avoid in school. And they do that by having assignments that have certain creative constraints, or you have to make something in a certain time frame, or get it in, or iterate on it and take feedback and adapt it. So often a lot of these courses will try to structure things to set you up for that. And it definitely helps, because you will be in that environment where you have to, work is work. You might have to quickly make something in that week, or maybe you get to polish it later and you just want to sit there and do it for 2 weeks, but that's not the case.
Smallest playable prototype.
I tell my students games are never finished, they're abandoned. Like you just go, okay, that's as good as I'm going to get it within. It's
That's all
sounds
art.
really negative when you say it, but it's actually what's that?
That's all art.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Shane?
I was just going to add that it sounds terrible, but one of the things you learn in an education kind of pathway is discipline. We have briefs that are really open creatively, but here's what you're handing up. This, and this, and it's this resolution, it's this polycount, and it's this file format. Because if a big company just had everyone just free-forming whatever they thought they would fit, it's going to just crash and burn. So that mix of creativity and discipline is a really fine line. I think we've all been there for sure.
I was just thinking of all the assignments. I've put strange requirements in because it forces creativity, because how do I solve this?
What are some of the people skills that you could probably practice or work on in education?
God, like all of them. Like, I mean, because let's face it. Like, video games are not some totally alien workplace. You have deadlines, you have meetings, you have to talk to people, you have to get along. Even if you don't necessarily personally like someone, you still have to actually like work with them, right, and be functional. And that's okay, because we don't like everybody. That's cool. See, thank you.
Harsh,
it's
but
true. And it's going to be exactly the same thing in university, right? We've had the dreaded group work mentioned. You're going to do group work in university because you're going to go do group work in the workplace, and you're not going to love everybody in your group, but you're still going to have to work with them and get something done, whether it is an assignment or a deliverable for a project. So you learn like tons of soft skills in university to set you up for success in video games or any other workplace you want to go into.
Yeah, I'd say the number one, and this is from like all of my experience in the US as well, like when you look at the data collected from any employer, the number one thing they want from uni graduates is good communication. And we've already talked about that a bit, but it's written communication and verbal. Like you need to be able to understand what you need to communicate to someone so that they can take the next piece, because it is a pipeline, right? My work goes to the next person and it needs to fit these parameters. I need to tell them what I was thinking, and I need to ask them what they need, and then I need to be able to listen to what they say to me. And if we're discussing a problem, I need to not take it personally. So like all of that, and we're gonna share game design documents together. And so like the writing piece is also important. You need to be able to communicate technical specifications and explain what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what the team is meant to accomplish in those documents. So all forms of communication are skills that you need to be developing, and not just sort of say, I don't want to do that.
It's a weird people skill, but industry really appreciates people who are willing to troubleshoot, who are willing to find a way. This isn't working. I know it works because I've seen it working. I need to figure out how to make it work. And that's a level of resilience that not everyone has. The people who make it in the industry are the ones that will just make it happen, for sure.
Yeah, and don't tell me about it as a boss. Like, go and figure it out. Maybe mention it, saying I'm working on this because it didn't work, but don't go, I can't do it. Like that can't do attitude is really disruptive. I'm going to add another one, is when you work in this sort of industry, it's very easy to get super passionate about what you're building and have an opinion and be inflexible because, oh no, I want to do this because this. So be able to disconnect yourself from the product, because in the end, for the majority of us, we're building a product for a customer, and we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the customer, right? We can be passionate about what we do, and we can take pride in what we're building, but what would the customer want? Not what do I want? And I was thinking about the pitches and people were building for themselves, which is okay. I mean, if you're doing it as a casual thing, it's great. I think every game developer has this game on the back burner that they're building for themselves, that they're trying to knock up. And I'm sure half the people in this audience have a game in their mind. That's fine. That's what you do to practice, and maybe it'll be a game.
I actually have a story that follows along that really well. So I was consulting with a big company, and they were pitching to me their idea. They really wanted to, so I'm an expert in inclusive game design, specifically like how to represent women better and gender diversity better. So they'd come to me because they wanted to try out a dedicated female protagonist for the first time. And so they pitched to me their story and like the backstory for the character. But what I noticed was the character's brother was more interesting than the protagonist. And I was like, you are setting yourself up for problems, because I can tell someone on this team really loves this guy. And like, he should have his own game because I'm interested in that too. But like, you haven't put as much effort into developing the thing you said you came here wanting to do, because you're flexing the skills you already had. So that makes sense, right? But having to make that pivot and go, oh, I love this character so much. But sorry, buddy, we're gonna have to put you on the shelf and really focus on trying to achieve the goal that the team had together. And I don't know who it was on that team that needed to make that move, but I hope it wasn't the guy in charge.
Can I add one other thing that I think is incredibly important, and that's just joy. Joy in doing this stuff. I went to uni a million years ago, and I can tell you that things have changed, but my art teacher, he said to us on day one, art is pain. If you are not suffering, it's not art. And I am the exact opposite. I want to be joyful about creation. And I think that that's actually really important, because when you start at a job or at uni or wherever you're studying, you're kind of petrified and nervous and shy, and sometimes it can come across that you're not joyful about it. So have some joy in that.
I think in a way we talk about joy, and there is an element of tenacity, right? So we talk about resilience and tenacity, and that's important because you get a lot of feedback and you want to keep going and take it on and not be closed-minded and be open to ideas. But at the end of the day, you'll be creating what other people will see, if that makes sense. Sounds really woo-woo, but if you're going into it excited, people will pick up on that enthusiasm. And it is a tricky job. Like, you have to troubleshoot and to communicate clearly, write things clearly, talk to other people. And that troubleshooting in particular, it's not just, I have a technical problem I need to solve. It might be, I'm a game designer and I came up with this great feature idea, and rather than getting stuck on putting in I don't know, a teleportation thing because you really liked playing Portal, but you're making a farm simulator, you have to be open-minded and go, okay, what would fit for this game? And that's where the joy comes in.
Alien abduction of sheep.
Exactly. See, that might fit.
I really hope someone wrote that idea down, because that needs to be in a game.
There you go. And that's where it comes in. And that's the tenacity to go, oh, okay, it didn't quite work. Open-mindedness, well, what could work? And the joy of going, look, this is an interesting challenge, let's try.
Yeah, one thing we say is that when you find the right pathway, you know you've arrived because it's the thing that you want to do the hard work for. So it doesn't deflate you or make you less passionate just because it's difficult. It makes you want to do it more. So.
Oh, that was really nice. And we got about 10 minutes left, so we're getting into let's say we've done our course, we're really joyfully, tenaciously, open-mindedly approaching it. What can we do, I guess, nearing the end and starting to look for a job to help enter the industry, whether it be skills, activities, events, and so forth? What's important?
Have a portfolio. And
Read my
iterate.
mind.
Yeah, and iterate on that portfolio. Start it probably even like earlier, because who knows what opportunities are going to come up in like your third year or whatever. You want something ready to go. And then, 3-6 months after that, what new stuff have you done? How is your portfolio different a year after graduation compared to what you had at graduation?
I can't believe I'm going to add this because Jackie didn't jump on it first, but share your work.
I thought that was the point of having a portfolio.
Get on the social media and share screenshots of things. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think this is where people decide they don't want to do that because they don't have enough perfect work to share. Sharing in progress stuff is really exciting, and I think there's an ecosystem and a community for that. So whether you're talking directly to your people who are doing the same kind of thing you are, and maybe it starts there, you're gonna spread your work, especially if they're enthusiastic about it. So don't be afraid to put stuff on your socials, and it's not arrogance to promote yourself. It really isn't.
And don't wait. That's a big thing we see with
Sooner.
students. Don't wait until you graduate. Don't wait 3-6 months to reach out to that person you met at that networking event. They're not going to remember you 6 months later.
I'd sort of add to that if almost everyone here is from Adelaide, there are some really good social networks in Adelaide. There's Adelaide Game Developers, which used to be called ARG. They have Screenshot Saturday. I'm sure you guys may have seen that. So that there are people actually putting up screenshots of what they've been working on each week and getting feedback, or people are going, this is great, why don't you try doing this? And it's like a little bit of a feedback. And I don't think I've ever seen, Facebook's toxic, right? But I haven't seen much negativity on that at all. Like, there's occasionally one, but it's very positive in that community. And when you find the right community, that's a great thing to interact with, because you're getting feedback and you're getting support, and also people remember you. Like, oh yeah, I saw you're posting on ARG. So
Shane's a master of this, by the way.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm an oversharer. That's what Lauren really means. I share everything that I make because I know that for me, if it's made someone smile, that I don't care. I talked about joy before. But it's actually a really interesting way to think about it. And this works online and in person. And you folks have already done what I'm about to say. You just turn up. You turn up to everything. And this is a weird industry that if I see the same face 4 events in a row, I go, oh, they're obviously part of the industry, right? So you literally turn up to everything and people start to recognise you. And that's online as well. Yeah.
I know Shane because I saw social media posts and I interacted with him around that way, so originally, right? So it's quite funny when you see the face that's associated with the posts you've seen over the years, right? Yeah. So,
and it's really interesting because it does mean that you have to actually get out there. And once again, for some of you in the audience, for me, I lost all of my shame years ago. I'm happy to just turn up to anything and talk, show my art, share my failures. But not everyone is great at that, but it's something that's really worthwhile getting good at. Remembering that you can see how much we love this stuff, and go out there, have a chat to anyone who's exhibiting a game out there, and they will absolutely, they'll drag you in. So you're actually in a really accepting industry anyway.
Yeah, I have a recommendation on that front as well, because I live with an introvert who is neurodivergent. So if you're an introvert, or if you are neurodivergent and you're like, I can't do the people stuff, go with a buddy. And so like in a pair, even if both of you are a little bit nervous, you're going to be stronger. And if you can, hitch yourself to an extrovert. That's even better. Just like sidle
I'm
up
that
to one
person
of those.
that's dragging people along like, it's okay, you can go.
Yeah, you're like,
Fly.
I'll start the conversation and then I'll just let you take over. Once
Suddenly
we
they
figure out
look
what
around and you're gone.
yeah, what the two people are excited about, they can sort of smooth that transition.
I think if you are super shy about posting stuff, start by commenting on other people's stuff, saying, oh, this looks really great, and just, and then you get that interaction, and then you can sort of ramp it up. You don't have to suddenly put up your screenshot for Assassin's Creed that you worked on with your AAA studio buddies, right? You can sit there and actually make comments about other people's work, and the only thing I would say is, when you write something, reread it and go, is there any way someone can misinterpret my comment here? And then just take a second to think about it and then post it, because I've seen people burn themselves by accident by doing it. So just write it, reread it, and don't be critical of other people, and because you're just learning, right? But sometimes people get a little bit too critical, and it's like, oh, this is supposed to be supportive and that type of thing. And then people will remember you going, oh, they're really supportive.
I sound like a motivational speaker, but just be kind, right? Yeah. It's incredibly important, and don't burn bridges at all.
The internet can be such a nasty place. Let's not have our game development spaces be like that.
Let's make bridges, not burn them.
Mm. Oh, hey,
it's Death
get that on a t-shirt straight away.
Yeah, that's a great shirt. So we talked a bit about folio there, and I do want to echo that that's really important. As employers, we really look for your folio. So, yeah, I mean, resume is one thing, you can read words on a page, but if you're really interested in character art, for example, as a graduate, we'd look for 2 to 5 really high quality pieces that showcase a couple of different art styles, but you don't need to go and have 20 things there. It's more about the quality over the quantity, and looking at that opportunity to start exploring that now, and what you might want to do when you get there. And just to recap on that, what you all mentioned is presence. So online, in-person, networking, just, feeling like you're there and being a part of the industry, connecting with people. We're all very friendly. So there's Discord communities, there's IGDA has a big Facebook group as well. Locally, you'll have events too. In Melbourne, we have the IGDA meetup, so there's a couple there. And then when you've got your folio, look at something like ArtStation if you're an artist, or even if you've just worked on some games, you can put up images there. You don't need to go and build a fancy website. We really don't care. Unless you want to go to a web dev role, then you're in the wrong industry. But having something like that is great. Posting it on LinkedIn. Don't put it on your personal Facebook. That's what Facebook is for. And I've got one more question as well I'll throw to you, but you want to jump in, Lauren?
I was just going to say, put your best stuff first in your portfolio. Your best 2 or 3 should be front and center.
That presentation is really important. So take the time to take good shots of things, present them nicely, have videos of how you've made it. All of that stuff counts. And I will add in, if you have a really big goal to work for a certain employer, like a Blizzard or an Activision or something like that, keep in mind their art styles. So working for a Fortnite coloured game is very different to a dark horror game. So if all of your folio is horror games and you're applying for a job at Playside with Dumb Ways to Die, maybe it doesn't work. It's bright and colourful versus horror. It's not quite there. And lastly, I just want to ask, we've got 3 minutes, I think. Not sure who's... I'm just going off my clock. It's a bit fast.
There's no timekeeper. Just keep going.
Okay, you'll keep going. What was my question? Oh, yeah, so we've got the entry point now. I'll go really quickly through this one, but a lot of folks here look a bit younger, so we're thinking about post-graduation. But what are some things they can do now to think about the things they might want to study in games or paths they might want to follow and start building their folio now?
Make stuff. Keep making stuff. Just keep making stuff. And eventually you'll find the right pathway, whether it's education. And it might be that you make stuff just yourself in your room, on YouTube, and then you'll eventually reach the point where you go, I can't do this anymore. I need to step it up. But honestly, just making things, everything you make will add to your repertoire, and you'll make mistakes along the way, all of that sort of stuff. So honestly, make things. I will quote a YouTube channel though, Nerdforge, who says, make things with stories. All right, so try and think about, I'm making something, but what's the context?
Yeah, at Flinders we have a portfolio entry, but we're very nice about it. Like, we just want to see, what are you, passion. We want to see your enthusiasm for making games. So what we're trying to vet there is, I don't just love games and want to play them. It's, I really want to make them, and here's what I've tried to make so far. So it could be sketches of maps, it could be levels you made in Mario Maker 2, it could be an entire world building document. So the portfolio takes any kind of form based on your specific interests in game production. So we're flexible on that, but you can also contact us if you have more questions.
And I'd say also look critically at games that have done well and not so well, not like just AAAs, but like other small indie things as well. Like even just looking at the Steam reviews of what people liked or what people didn't like and what resonated, and then think about why and how would you fix some of those problems, or what can you learn from the things that people did like, and how can that inform your game making?
I guess what I would say is so I'll give you an example. I love restoring old photos, and I found a great channel on Facebook where I go in there and people post photos they need to get repaired, and I go off and repair them and then send them back to them for free. But what it means is I have a task to do, and I can actually go, I don't know how to solve this, I have to figure out how to solve it, and it forces me to think through how to solve the issue. And the other problem that I find is that sometimes people over-rely, so my voice is going, on GPT for solutions. And just as me as an academic, I hate it. No, just kidding. It's a great tool and it's worth using. But if you're trying to learn fundamental skills, you should avoid it and try to figure out on yourself how to do those fundamental skills. Because when you go to build your portfolio, you want to be able to say, I can do this myself. And so it makes it very much honest about what you're doing, right? GPT is great. I use it all the time. I think we all use it for different tasks. But if I'm trying to learn something, I don't use it because it makes it, I think I've done it, but I haven't really. You know what I mean? So, what I'm trying to get to is what you're trying to show when you graduate in 3 or 4 years' time from wherever you go is that I have a set of skills that makes me stand above everyone else. And that's by knowing those skills and going ahead more than everyone else. And that makes you competitive in the market.
I agree. The last thing I'll add, so I've touched on a few things there. Game jams are really good. If it might be a bit tricky because sometimes they have age restrictions as well, but there are sometimes local ones that universities will run. So check out all of these unis and see if they've got something on. There's workshops that they often run too, high school ones or in the holidays. Itch.io will have online game jams too. Though sometimes they're a month long, year long, whatever. There's different time frames and stuff, and you can do them online. And then the last thing I will recommend, which just left my brain, I forgot.
It's okay. I'll say the Games Lab at Flinders does run game jams. And we have a Discord, and that's where most of our stuff happens.
And that's all things to build your folio. Lastly, if you're not sure what you want to do in games, that's okay. Part of the thing you study for is to help uncover that. And while you're still picking, you can go and look at YouTube videos about there's heaps of stuff about how people have done animation in a particular game or a day in the life of a programmer. Have a look at that. If you have a favorite game, see how they built the feature and then just enjoy learning about that. And there's YouTube. You can do that all the time. TikTok even does that now too. It's weird.
Watch the no-clip documentaries. No-clip documentaries about game making is really cool because you get the full picture of how a game came into being. And the stories are so diverse because no game comes into being the same way.
Yeah. There's some good ones around documentation. There's a website that has all the original documents, for design documents for some of the oldest games you can think of, like
messy,
Grand Theft Auto and stuff. And it's amazing reading, just looking through and going, they came out of that game, that came out of that document. So, go around, be an authority on game development, and it's a great career. I think. Yeah, we're talking to the wrong people here, of course, but it is.
We're biased.
I love it because it's the fusion. I'm a technical guy, but it's the fusion of the technical, the personal, and the artistic. And it means that you can move backwards and forwards between those things and be an artist, but also be a technical person. That's why I love it.
It's a wonderful career, so do it. Yeah.
I think I meant to drop the mic after you said that.
No, I've got to end this, so no. I don't think the audio person would thank me for that. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We'll be here for questions, and I hope you enjoy your lovely stage.